what the American people yearn to hear, not because they yearn to hear it, but just to tell all, level and so on. Would you go further than mistakes? That you've explained how you got caught up in this thing, you've explained your motives, and I know how difficult it is for anyone, and most of all you, but I think that people need to hear it, and I think unless you say it, you're going to be haunted for the rest of your life.
I can only say that, in answer to your question, that while technically I did not commit a crime, an impeachable offense, these are legalisms. As far as the handling of this matter was concerned, it was so botched up. I made so many bad judgments.
Originally in 1969 you said, I don't believe in political settlements, I believe in the armed struggle, not political settlements. When did you change your mind? 1988?
First of all, you have to remember that it is me who gave the first initiative for democratic state where Jews, Christians, and Muslims can live together. And it is me who went to the United Nations raising the olive branch and began to protect my olive branch.
You cannot make peace on the outside if you cannot make peace on the inside. And the people of Israel trust my government, and they trust me, to bring a real peace, which means peace with security, peace that doesn't have buses explode in the middle of Israel, but a peace you can literally live with. I mean that literally.
Would your approach be similar to President Kennedy's? In fact, or are you
we're
different?
living in a different time. I mean, the 1960s, late 1960s, and the 70s are different than they were in the early 1960s.
Right.
I was happy to be part of that, and but that was part of my life that has passed. And what I'm looking to and toward is not continuing what ended in 1963, but beginning what can happen in 1969, which will have an effect for the 1970s. That's what's important, not what we did in the early 1960s, what we can do from now on.
Why are they going after WikiLeaks? Well, they want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them. But why are they going after me? There is a particular reason, which is they have been tremendously embarrassed. The State Department, the US military, has been tremendously embarrassed by these abuses being revealed. So what do you do if you're embarrassed? Well, you want to save face. How do you save face? You have to slap the face of the person who is perceived to have embarrassed you. And because I'm the most recognizable person for WikiLeaks, I am the target.
Some people, of course, say that Iraq didn't lessen terror around the world, but encouraged Al-Qaeda to do more, if any, provoked it to do more. What do you say to that?
The most important thing for people to remember is that this terrorism has been going on for several years, even before September the 11th. But then September the 11th was a totally unprovoked attack by Al-Qaeda on the United States of America.
It's only now, after we've seen Watergate, the failure in Vietnam, corruption in government, the S&L scandal, quadrupling the deficit in a decade, the manipulation of our feelings by these cheap 30-second ads and the divisions in America, that people think politics is something sleazy and bad and self-seeking. I was raised with Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy. It was a noble, decent thing to want to be a state representative, a school board member, a governor, a legislator, a member of Congress.
Do you think there is any chance, any hope that Saddam Hussein will be overthrown by the end of 1992?
Don't know about the time frame, but he is increasingly isolated. We must make very clear, day in and day out, that his going out of there will result in the Iraqi people having a new chance, result in the Iraqi people seeing the lifting of the embargoes, result in the Iraqi people enjoying the much better relations with their own neighbors in the neighborhood and certainly with countries like the United States.
In terms of commerce, the thing that has caught people's imagination is your thought about the wallet PC. Now, how big would that be, and how much would it cost? And what would it do? Almost everything, it would seem.
Well, you'll definitely have a what we call information appliance that's small enough to carry around in your pocket. And we call it the wallet PC because that's about the size it'll be, and because it can replace all the things we carry around today. It can replace paper money, the keys we use to open locks, credit cards, pictures of your kids. All of that will be available on a nice little screen that will include the ability to know where you are, so-called global positioning system. Therefore, you can have a little map, you can see the nearby restaurants or directions to somewhere you want to go. It'll get the latest information about traffic conditions or subway times, and so you'll be able to visualize it, and yet you'll always take that with you so you can get messages and be reminded of your schedule.
Ruth Mandel said, when it comes to women, people are not ready to take more than a teaspoonful of change at a time.
Oh, I think that there's something to that, and I think some of it's generational too, that, you know, the lives that my friends and I have lived are different from my mother's. We've had different choices, and we are changing.
I had always hated communism. It was just contrary to human nature, it was just contrary to human spirit. How could you ever have a self-appointed group of people, the Marxists and the Leninists, saying to all the rest of the people, you cannot have your freedom?
I think the credit for translating the understanding by the politicians of the fact that nuclear war is impermissible and there can be no winners of it, and there's a threat to the humanity and the survival of humanity, the credit should go to the Soviet leaders because we have been able to translate that into the real politics. And I have to give credit to my partner, President Reagan, for that, because single-handedly I would not have been able to do that.
I have always believed that if we should start down the road to the elimination of nuclear weapons. The MAD policy, as it's called, mutual assured destruction. What kind of a defensive policy is that? Is to say that both sides are here, and if one of them starts it, both sides are going to get blown up by nuclear weapons.
It appears that our partners in the West are all too often still in the grip of old notions and tend to picture Russia as a potential aggressor. That's a completely wrong conception of our country. It gets in the way of developing normal relations in Europe and indeed the world.
It's always a tendency to compare our country in my time to the most perfect democracies of the world. I don't mind that. But now what we hear is, oh, let's try to understand these people. After all, Islam is something special when what they are doing is absolutely contrary to Islam. Now everybody is trying to say, well, let's try to understand these people who are killing, massacring others, the people they don't like, just like flies.
Perhaps the most happy day of my life was the day that I happened to have left office as president, but when the hostages were finally free and on the way home.
If there is a God, I do not believe he's particularly worried by gay poems about Christ or dissenting novels about Islam, you know, because what kind of God would it be who was rocked on his throne by a poem or a book? It seems to me the problem is not between God and writers. The problem is between people who claim to speak in the name of God and who usually in those moments make a habit of killing writers.
And I never realized being a woman was any different than being a man, because my father treated us all so equally. And it was only after his death that I realized that people thought women are second-class citizens. That's why I have a very strong commitment to women's programs now.
Well, let's come to the basic question on race that's been asked for years and years. Would you let your daughter marry a Negro?
I don't even want to, in fact, I don't even want to get into discussion of that business. In fact, I don't even want to discuss the matter of race, really, because that's the most important thing in our country is maintaining law and order. Race relations are going to work themselves out. insofar as people are concerned, I'll put the question to you. Would you like for your daughter to marry someone of an opposite race? And I think that's a matter that will have to be left up. I don't believe in intermarriages of Negro and white. If you want, I'm candid and honest about it. I don't think it's good for either race. I think the races ought to remain intact. I think God made one race, he made another race, and that it ought to be that way. But if anybody wants to intermarry, that's their own business.
Tell me, how would you like to be remembered? What would you like the first line of your obituary to say?
Here lies the man who has done his duty on earth. That is all.
I think that will be granted.
Thank you. Thank you.